Hello YouTube. So I was scrolling through my subscription box and I saw Agent of Doubt's video response to a video done by BeautyStanding4Him, who is a relatively new YouTuber and quite frankly just about as bright as Venom Fang X in that regard. So yeah, Agent of Doubt, if you're watching this, it's not because you missed something or you weren't thorough enough. Your video response is pretty damn good. I just thought I might add my own perspective into this whole argument, or rather argument that she presents, because really, it's not much of an argument she makes. I address you now, beauty standing for him. You seem to be under the misconception that we atheists are absolutely guilt-free when it comes to doing things like drugs and alcohol and having multiple sex partners, and that is absolutely 100% not the case. You try and put forward a case for faith and to drop intellect in favor of faith. And this is one thing I will absolutely 100% never understand about you Christians, or you theists in general, is why you would decide to just drop all your logical thought and all rational cognition in favor of appealing to emotion. Sure, it must feel great, it must feel very free for you not to take responsibility, but for you to say that faith is something we should respect and go even further than that and say that intelligence is something that's corrupt and perverted is just downright mind-boggling to me. Quite frankly, as a human being, I'm disappointed how little stock you put in intelligence, considering how everything we rely on and everything we take for granted is based upon, essentially, the subsequent intelligence of previous generations. I mean, because of previous generations pouring their intellect into one body and one force, we now have all these things that we enjoy today. For example, from the clothes on your back, to the video camera you use to film your video, to the internet where you uploaded your video. These were all things brought about by the intelligence of man, and yet you discredit it as corrupt and evil. In a sense, I can see why you wouldn't want people to use intellect when dealing with your God, because really, thinking on faith is easy. I can see the appeal for it. You don't have to make these difficult decisions that many people do these days. And while that might be gratifying to you, it's definitely not the most responsible or mature of options. A responsible and mature person will make these difficult decisions by themselves. And not only for themselves, but for the better of others around them, without God telling them to help others. I don't know what atheist or what group of atheists you are speaking on behalf of, but I am one of these atheists who doesn't really care. If you want to go worship a god, if you want to do drugs, if you want to have casual sex, that's what you want to do. That's your decision, and I shouldn't try and convince you otherwise, because I have my lifestyle choices and everyone else has theirs. However, what I do take an issue to, and what I will have a problem with, is if your faith hurts people. Then yeah, I do take issue to that. In the same way that I take issue to someone's drinking if their drinking caused them to be violent. There's also quite a large difference with faith and, let's say, doing drugs or drinking or having casual sex. And the major difference is that one is stigmatized in society and the other isn't. Now, why that plays a pretty important role, I'll illustrate with an example. Heroin, for example. Everyone knows heroin is bad. Everyone knows the risks of doing heroin. Everyone knows that heroin can kill people. People still do heroin, but they do it consciously, knowing that yes, they might damage themselves and they might hurt other people while doing so. However, with faith and with religion, it's a completely different issue, considering how religion is not only socially acceptable, but sometimes even socially encouraged, depending on where you live. And this is as much of a problem as heroin, considering how faith can hurt people. Finally, you seem to be laboring under the very sheltered notion that we atheists choose not to believe in your God because of our intelligence. And quite frankly, belief is not a choice. It's a compulsion based on what we see in front of us. I do not choose the fact that I don't believe in unicorns because I just don't see any evidence for unicorns. In the same way, I don't choose whether or not I can believe in your God because that decision has already been made for me. The evidence I see, or rather lack of evidence I see for your God, has led me to believe that there is in fact no God. The full 5 minutes you spent iterating your premise about how we atheists just like to forego our intelligence for other things is essentially based on the notion that your God even exists in the first place, which you haven't even proven. So unless you prove that your God exists to begin with, the whole video you just made is essentially moot. So I guess that's it for now, guys. Thanks for watching, and may the truth always be heard.